The night my wife came home and found the house empty. The only things waiting for her were an envelope on the kitchen counter and a photograph she had spent years pretending did not exist. She would later say that the silence in the house felt louder than any argument we had ever had. But the truth is that by the time she walked through that door, the decision had already been building for months. My name is Nolan Prescott. I live with my wife in a quiet neighborhood outside Greenwich, Connecticut. The kind of place where the lawns are trimmed perfectly and the neighbors know just enough about each other to smile politely without asking real questions. From the outside, my life looked stable. I ran a mid-sized financial advisory firm in Stamford. My wife, Vivian Prescott, worked as a senior event planner for luxury corporate clients. Our schedules were busy. Our house was beautiful. Our friends assumed we had the kind of marriage people hoped for. But stability can sometimes hide distance so gradually that neither person notices when the gap begins. Vivian and I had been married for 9 years. And for most of those years, our relationship had felt balanced. Not dramatic, not fragile, just steady. The kind of steady that makes you believe you understand the person you wake up next to every morning. But over time, something small began changing. Vivian started traveling more frequently for work. At first, the trips were short. 2 days in Boston, 3 days in Miami, a conference in Chicago. I never questioned it. Her career required it. And trust is something you either practice consistently or you slowly destroy. But around the beginning of that year, I started noticing subtle shifts. She came home later than usual, even when she was not traveling. Her phone stayed face down on the kitchen counter. Messages arrived late at night. When I asked who it was, the answers were casual. Just work, just a client, just the event team. Nothing she said sounded suspicious. But something about the rhythm of her behavior felt unfamiliar. Not dishonest, just different. One evening in early October, I was organizing files in my home office when I realized I needed a document from our shared cloud drive. Vivian had left her laptop open in the living room. I remember hesitating for a moment before touching it. Because even in marriage, people instinctively recognize certain boundaries. But curiosity has a quiet persistence. When I opened the screen, her email inbox was already visible. I was not searching for anything specific. At least that is what I told myself. But one subject line caught my attention immediately. From Carter Whitfield. Subject, still thinking about last night. I stared at the screen longer than I would like to admit. Because sometimes the mind begins constructing possibilities before the heart is ready to confront them. I opened the email. The message itself was not explicit, but the tone was personal. Too personal. It referenced a dinner in Manhattan. A conversation that had apparently lasted until midnight. And a line near the end that read, "I know things are complicated for you right now, but I meant what I said." My first instinct was not anger. It was confusion, because I had never heard the name Carter Whitfield before. That night when Vivian came home, I watched her carefully during dinner. She seemed relaxed, normal, almost cheerful, which made the conversation even harder to start. "Vivian," I said calmly, "do you know someone named Carter Whitfield?" She froze for half a second, just long enough. Then she took a sip of water. "He's a client," she said. The answer sounded prepared. Not defensive, but controlled. "Why?" she asked. "I saw an email from him earlier," I replied. She nodded slowly. "He's planning a large corporate retreat." "That's probably what you saw." The explanation sounded plausible, but something about the way she avoided eye contact lingered in my mind. Over the next few weeks, the name Carter Whitfield appeared again. Not directly, but indirectly. Vivian mentioned another New York trip, another planning meeting, another client dinner. The pieces did not prove anything, but they formed a pattern, and patterns have a way of revealing truths slowly. One night in November, Vivian left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs showering. The screen lit up. A message preview appeared. "Carter Whitfield." The message read, "Do you ever think about what life would look like if things were different?" I stood there for a long time looking at that message. Not angry, just very, very still, because that was the moment something shifted inside me. Before we continue, pause for a moment and answer honestly. If you saw a message like that on your spouse's phone, would you confront them immediately? Or would you wait until you understood the full picture? Because I chose the second option. Not because I was afraid, but because incomplete information often leads to incomplete decisions. Over the next 2 months, I paid attention. Quietly, carefully. Vivian's travel increased. Her phone remained close to her at all times, and her explanations became slightly shorter. Then in late January, something unexpected happened. Vivian left for what she described as a 2-day conference in Boston. But that evening, while reviewing financial reports in my office, I received a notification from our joint credit card account. A charge appeared. A boutique hotel in Manhattan. Not Boston. I stared at the screen. The number itself was irrelevant, but the location was impossible to ignore. In that moment, a strange calm settled over me, because uncertainty had finally been replaced by clarity. The next morning, I drove to the office as usual. I completed my meetings. I finished reviewing the quarterly reports, and then I returned home earlier than normal. Not to confront Vivian, but to prepare. Preparation sometimes requires more courage than confrontation. I packed a single suitcase. Not dramatically, not angrily, just methodically. Then I sat down at the kitchen table. The envelope I left behind contained a short letter. Only 3 sentences. Vivian, I know about Manhattan. You deserve the freedom to choose the life you want. I deserve the honesty that should have come with it. Beside the envelope, I placed a photograph. It was taken 9 years earlier on the day we bought the house. Vivian and I were standing in the front yard, smiling, holding the keys. At the time, we believed we understood the future. I left the house before sunset. I did not turn back. Later that night, Vivian called. Once, twice, 7 times. I did not answer, because sometimes silence communicates more clearly than explanations. 2 days later, we met in a quiet cafe in Stanford. Vivian looked exhausted. Her eyes were red. I didn't think you would leave like that, she said. I didn't think you would stay once the truth became clear, I replied. She tried to explain. About loneliness. About work stress. About how the relationship with Carter had started as friendship. Maybe all of that was true. Human motivations are rarely simple. But explanations after discovery often arrive too late to repair the damage they describe. In the end, our separation was not dramatic. There were no shouting matches, no maquillations, just paperwork, and 2 people who finally acknowledged that the version of their marriage they believed in no longer existed. Before we end this story, I want to ask you something. Do you think Nolan made the right decision by leaving quietly instead of confronting Vivian immediately? Or would you have handled the situation differently? Because relationships rarely collapse in a single moment. More often, they fade quietly while both people pretend the silence means stability.